We're celebrating an important milestone as we bring you our very first book released by MNI Publishing, called Finding Purpose. And this will be the theme of all future episodes, as we present client stories from our amazing worldwide Life Between Lives facilitators. Today I am in conversation with my colleague Sophia Kramer. Sophia is an award-winning master hypnotherapist and instructor, specialising in ancestral healing, somatic trauma work, past life and life between lives regression, being one of the first to bring Bert Hellinger's family constellations to the USA. She then trained with Dr. Michael Newton in his last LBL training in 2006. She conducts private sessions, international workshops and trainings. Most of all, Sophia is a compassionate and intuitive guide for your inner journeys. Her passion is to assist you in finding your true soul's purpose and healing, so that you can be your best self, guided by your soul's compass. Your amazing title I loved your title. I'm going to read it. Hang on a sec, because it's long for me to remember. Clean up your stuff. Don't let past life imprints make life and love miserable. And it comes under a chapter in the book called Freedom and Free Will. Yeah. And the story, it starts off with your client, Hae Kyung, a lady who's 33 from Korea. She lives in the US now, and she has come to you. She's a director of IT, and she's come because she has some dynamics that are going on. She helps you to understand some of the culture of Korea, saying that over there it's all about shouting and hitting, and it's what they do. And she's in a marriage that's failing. It seems to have lost its spark. She's married to Frank and a very young daughter, Marion, and she's not happy. They're not happy, and she doesn't feel like she's fulfilling her real potential within her work as well. So she initially comes to you for help and support, not knowing what that form that might take. And you do some family constellation work with her to uncover dynamics, hidden dynamics, unseen dynamics, to understand a bit more about that. And then you do the very first past life regression, not linked to the LBL, but the very first one, to direct her to where she can understand, like a detective, where she can understand more about the dynamics that are going on in her life now. And she arrives in a lifetime in Persia, Iran, and her name is Amrata. And when I read the story as well, maybe you could tell me this, but when I read the story, I could really feel the fear coming off the page for this year. Yeah. Who you describe as she's sitting initially with you in her chair. She's stylish, she's open, but there's something there as well. There's something holding her back. And what she observes in this community in Persia is that women are seen but not heard, and they have to make themselves invisible because you're so close to violence, maybe dying at the hands of the community and the men. And her husband in that lifetime has been, through his deeds and his acts, has been shamed. And so the community kind of shame him, and he never really recovers from that. And she's on the receiving end of that, never stepping out of place. And she uncovers that her husband in that lifetime is her father in this lifetime.
Who was greatly abusive in this life, right?
Absolutely. So getting some way to understand. Yeah. And then what happens is a little while later, so what she does uncover from those preliminary sessions with you, especially the family constellations as well, is that she's uncovering that, she has this real feeling inside of her. There's like a light bulb goes off, and she has this feeling that she really would like to work with women of all cultures and backgrounds to really help where they feel disempowered. She'd like to empower them, and that's part of her learning journey. So that's one of these pockets of purpose. So
absolutely.
Go to when she starts her LBL with you, and the past life component of it. She's a soldier on a boat in its World War II, and she, she's with a friend. She's got he, I beg your pardon, has got a comrade.
Yeah, he in that life. Yeah.
And he died in that life. He got shot in that life, but felt guilty and cowardice, because he didn't support his men and he didn't support his friend who he was close to. And then he uncovers that, in the spirit world, he uncovers the soul aspect of it, that the really close good friend is actually Frank, her husband. So can we take the story up just from there, just brief components of what the LBL aspect of it, please, Sophia?
Yeah, you have done a beautiful summary of it. I was sitting here with goosebumps. It took me back to the session.
It's so interesting. And I think this is what our friends, our viewers, our listeners, even if they don't come for an LBL initially, to read the book will sow some seeds. It will plant some seeds within the mind.
Absolutely.
So, won't it? So, sorry, please go on.
And we are all starting where we are starting. And you said before, I think it's so important, so important to make this work not exclusive and accessible. So actually, there are a lot of younger people coming now too, who are really ready. And they might not go the route which Hae Kyung went. I just want to say that too. It might open up right away when we have the space in the womb, because in the womb we can access soul and so on. But that would go a bit more into teaching, and I'd again go a lot around before I hit the subject. So for Hae Kyung, it was really important to first also trust her mind, because how often do we hear, how does this really work? How do I know I don't make this up? Am I really deep enough? I know from the books, I read the books, I have to be in a very deep state. Am I going to be accessible? Am I going to be able to remember this? And she has a very active mind because of survival strategy, also from having received the abuse, and an active mind, I assume, already because there were several lifetimes of extreme fear and abuse. So what she presented was, I have so much fear and I have so much anxiety, and that infiltrates so many aspects of my life. How many people, especially maybe us women, can identify with the I'm not good enough? Now, if you received enough information in your childhood and enough punishment in your childhood and beating, you might really carry that sentence to that degree that it's extremely difficult to really work as a leader in the corporate world like she wanted to do. So the sentence, I'm not good enough, I might not be able to do this, increases the fear, increases the anxiety, and then it becomes a vicious cycle, as we know. So then there was the question mark about Frank, and she already had a foot out of the door with another man. And then there was the question mark about, am I a good enough mother?
Yeah.
How many women really even want to admit to that they might think, I don't really love my daughter enough. I'm not present enough. I don't really want a second child. In the end of the sessions, she in LBL, she says, oh, well, it would be good for me to have another child. And with that, she comes back with, and she's more confident that she could fill these shoes, so to speak. But how many women even want to admit, well, maybe I'm not such a great mother. Maybe I'm running away from it, which she did. She moved out. She left her husband and the daughter. I mean, that's a huge step. So fear, anxiety, the repetition of the former buddy or the former friend, and then that's the husband, and then the father and the abuser in Persia, who was her husband back then. The repetition of that meeting these souls again leads us to explore what kind of soul contracts do we have with each other. Now we know that we have soul groups and we incarnate with each other. So obviously whatever was needed to be completed with these souls continued. And she got more insight into that. So I think for her, it was really important to kind of slice it down. And I think it's also really important to know that for many people, life between lives is a somewhat advanced thing to do.
Yes.
And you cannot skip this life, like the abuse she received with her dad. You can't skip it. If you haven't worked on it, if you haven't done inner child work, if you haven't looked at what triggers in this life, your soul will say, we stop there. Yeah. And if you don't know that, you might be disappointed because you thought, oh, well, today I meet my guide and my counsel and they all tell me. So your soul first says, no, you go there. And then the past lives, which are part of your purpose, obviously, because past life imprints, they come back in your soul consciousness, guess where? Into each and every cell of your body, of your current body. That's where we carry it. It's kind of like, an imprint. And so we really need to focus on that. And she got, at counsel, she got more insight into that. She got some kind of really light feedback. We all think when we are in front of counsel, oh, we have to be so devoted on, oh my God, are they going to punish us because we didn't do good enough and so on. No, she realized, they're very accessible. And that's for me so important that clients come out of this kind of work with a certain sense of not only who they truly are, but also with some tools. How can I access again? You spoke contacting my guides. For me, it's normal. I mean, I can look out of the window here and, contact. But that's also because of the near-death experiences I had. Not just the one. So, but anyhow, to not lose my train of thought, she came back with a real sense of having cleared a huge amount of the fear, with the knowledge where it came from, with having worked on in past life. I mean, not everything is in the chapter, obviously, not all the things we do and the clear up and so on, and the work in past life. And with an encouragement to go back to her marriage and to try again. And her husband was brilliant too. Not every husband is willing to work on themselves. And he came and did his own work. So as I recall, we did some constellation work and some other sessions, some inner child and so on. And obviously, when one starts to change, there is a movement in the family, and the other one hopefully also starts to look at their own part or at their parts together and has the courage to do so. And that leads me back to purpose. I mean, that's part of their pocket of purpose, right? Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful way to say that. I really like it. These are little, headlights, so to speak, or subtext of a headline where we have to work through. So
it reminds me, pockets of purpose remind me a dandelion when it's just got the deal. Yeah, it's very soft and fluffy, and it's so perfectly round, and you've got them all stuck together to make a bigger purpose.
Yeah,
and it's all linked. It's wonderful that you really could tell from reading the book as well that the fear pervaded every aspect of her life.
Absolutely.
It stopped her stepping into her leadership role. And I know that at the point of which you stopped working with her,
Mhm.
she's wanting to go on to bigger things and work with women and really train, do some
Yeah.
training. You'd inspired her to go and do some training that would really help her and help
Yeah.
all of those around her, because we all receive, don't we, teacher and student all at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And did you hear any more back from her? Was there any further feedback or any follow-up, or did you get contacted?
So I usually do follow up
Mhm.
right away after the session, and then if it's wished, not everybody wishes to do so, but later on. I do know that they came together again and that she changed her profession. So she is definitely committed to, she started to be committed to be with women in her profession. So more I don't know. I haven't explored that, but I have seen in other cases. I actually just yesterday worked with a lady who not only moved to a different place and country, but really quit her profession and is on a completely new path also to help women especially. And it reminded me, it's funny because that actually came yesterday. It was interesting. So I haven't seen her since, what did we say, August. So it was interesting. So we did a follow-up session and she's in such a different place, not only personally, but also professionally. So that can be the outcome of these sessions, right? Doesn't have to be. It really depends on the individual. I mean, some people are concerned that it could be a radical change and that would impact their marriage or so, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, often it's a lot of reconciliation and a lot of understanding, a lot of forgiveness, a lot of compassion, because you start to understand the themes of those with whom you are incarnated, with whom you live. And it's a very healing movement to look through the eyes of someone who wounded you, for example. Right? I mean, I work with a lot of trauma also, a lot of grief. And then in soul state to reconnect from soul to soul, and not so much on the human level, but soul to soul, and really envelop and embrace there, and step further than the contracts and promises and agreements we made for the human life. So
I think that's because it lessens the blame and, you know, the labels that we put on things, that victim, perpetrator, whatever you want to call it.
Totally.
Quite a while back, in fact, in one of my previous episodes, I mentioned something I'd learned a long time ago, and it really, it was something I read actually, and it's the way I work with my phrases now. We understand the contracts, the promises, the agreements, of what you're going to do, but the way I often phrase it to my clients is, and what is it you agreed to learn with one another? And it really softens things. Because and they think, I can't imagine that I would sign up for that, but
It's just to understand it, isn't it? You know, I mean, sometimes, you know, we sometimes think everything is so holy when we go into the spirit realm. It can, as you know, it can be hilarious, right? Yes. And our guides can be so funny and remind us, oh my God, not everything is so darn serious, lighten up, you know? And and what kind of agreement do you have with your husband? Oh, well, you know, and they're hacking it up and laughing and saying, oh, well, this and that. And you start to laugh yourself, as the client, or we with them, because it's just such a incredible, funny, enlightening moment to see from up there. Oh my God, that's what we are doing? Huh, all right. It's not that big of a deal, you know. And some things which we feel as really trauma, and they are very traumatic in the human form, then, you know, it's like a check. Well, been there, done that.
yeah,
You know, like you said, victim, perpetrator, and some people are very afraid. Oh my God, I hope I'm not going to see myself as a bad person. I worked, just get this in mind, with a business person, with a businessman big person who went from one life to the next as a, murderer and eating people and, horrific stuff. Yeah, seriously.
Oh my God.
And he came on like, oh, but, that was the one life. And there were others. And yeah, I think that was really to really rub it in. We all have that really shadow part in us, this really dark part in us. And we don't need to place ourselves above someone else, because once we did something horrible, we were some, whatever we want to call it, in the past life. Because again, this is the planet of polarities. We are learning about good and bad and black and white and right and left and whatever.
And exactly, you've just, it's learning. We're learning from it.
That's the point.
And as long as you're doing that, well, that's progress. Because then you would not necessarily repeat that pattern or that behavior or that action against you.